I'll now hand it over to Jaideep to present his talk.
Thank you. Oh. Who has a meeting today? I just heard a notification. Or is it just a Saturday reminder? Am I audible enough, or do we need the mic? What do you think? It's a audible? Okay, I'll try to be as loud as I can. Otherwise, I don't think so that we have such a big room that we need a mic. Okay, my screen is visible. Cool. So, everyone had their own quiz, right? The host. Who uses AI for coding? Okay, I should have been asking who doesn't. Who uses AI coding daily? Okay, cool. So then I think, yeah, we have audience who understands what we are about to talk, because Tech Brews theme was around this. AI-enabled SDLC. I think we have come far. We have a long way to go. By the way, right now, whatever the industry that I am observing, and I'm sure you guys must also be, the idea is everybody is trying to build something, some harnesses, some rules, some skills, which is very Frankenstein at the moment. What do you understand by the word Frankenstein, right? So word Frankenstein means that you have put it up in some or the other way, but it looks ugly, and it is ugly. But it just works, because we are still at a very nascent stage of building up this whole thought process, right? There's no silver bullet to it. And harness is as good as what the context of an organization actually works, right? So we have come far, and we have a long way to go. So the idea is that there is a lot of things that we will have to cover, but there are multiple aspects of, from vibe coding to actually having their own set of guardrails. In fact, a lot of the quiz questions were around that. So I'll get to the point, right? Who am I? I'm founder CTO at 1to N, I think these days, these last two things keeps on changing. Rest everything is actually historical, so I can't change it. I'm into retro games, building Lego blocks. The one that you see is actually a Concorde airplane that we build at our office at 1to N. Right, now vibe coding, everybody is aware. Karabati one day tweeted that, hey, we are into this whole mode of vibe coding. Looks great. You write a prompt, you receive a lot of generic code. You try to solve some problem or build something which can be useful or throw away. It depends, right? At the end of the day, what actually matters to you, it matters to you, right? You keep on prompting. If these days, with a lot of these front-end models being very streamlined, it makes it much more easier. And with very less prompting, it works out of the box. I think the challenge that we are observing, and I'm sure everyone must be, when you try to collaborate within teams, right? Now you have two humans, and then there is this AI assistant. And instead of actually having a contract with the humans, right now we are having up a contract with the AI. And we need to start involving that AI agent and make that guy aware about, hey, how we would like to drive a software project which has to be released on production. At the end of the day, we get paid for writing code or generating code now. Let me rephrase it. Generating code to be released on production and to make some business out of it at the end. What your AI agent usually looks like? It is really fast. It's like a beast. It will just, if you don't tame it, it will keep on generating code. Sometimes it is also called as AI slop. Usually it is excellent. And in fact, human doesn't have that much of a, in fact, it increases a lot of cognitive load on human if you're not sure what you are even building. As I said, vibe coding was limited to your personal projects, what you do on weekends, right, at the end. No memory of yesterday's session. Things have improved with a lot of memory being saved right now these days, but I have faced that, hey, the guy is like completely out of memory. Like, what does that, what I was building yesterday, right? And because a lot of these models are trained on the generic code base, right? The one interesting question that comes in, there is a slop out and slop in. Now these frontier models will be generated on these whole AI codes that are being generated at the end of the day, right? But right, this one is a great meme. I'm sure that you must have watched this guy, but a developer can be a vibe coder, but a vibe coder cannot be a developer at the end, right? Who knows this guy? Bob Martin. Okay, Uncle Bob, Gang of Four. Very interesting guy. You should watch his videos. Still relevant. His 90s videos are still relevant. What a character. The animation that he does is amazing. But this line makes a lot of sense. Vibe coding is not same as disciplined agentic development, right? Just a caveat, AI-enabled SDLC is a very vast topic. I think what I would like to really collaborate to cover is on the team collaboration aspect, right? I have some slides, some repository, which is actually to follow along what we are really trying to do. Yep. I think the whole summary of this talk is mostly on these 5 habits that we would like to cover. First is brief your AI before you start about a tech stack, what you want to do. Design before you code, like doing a spur with your AI, trying to identify what are the patterns, what are the design decisions that you would like to cover. The good part is a lot of the context that a senior engineer used to carry in their head, and at engineering organizations where the documentation was poor, now an engineer is forced to do and write this documentation, because without this, you cannot tame your AI, right? Write your team's rules. It is, at the end of the day, it is easier to work with machines than with humans, right? I'm pretty sure that at the end of the day, there's a lot of back and forth that actually happens between humans than with the machines. And engineers are happy. Hence, individual contributor roles are much more relevant, and people are really happy about taking those roles. Keep a decision log and capture what you learn. So I think I'll straight away get into this. Here is a Git repository I've created. Of course, I will be sharing it as and when I actually progress. So there are a couple of terminals, so I'll be moving. Let me know if you're not able to get hold of. Cool. Brief your AI before you start. I'll switch to this talk, which is just helping us that, hey, there is a lay of the land right now. You are on ground zero. This is a Golang based stack that we have. I will get rid of, first of all, just a minute. Yeah, this is a Golang based stack, right? Now, if I show you there are 2 services. One is an order and one is a fulfillment. They are asynchronous in nature. So order is synchronous in nature. It takes up a request. It pushes to a RabbitMQ, a queue system, and a fulfillment just reads it, a producer consumer, very standard, nothing fancy, just for the sake of the conversation that we can try. Right? Now both developers build the same system. Here is what things change. Somebody is using, by the way, are there any front-end or JS developers or Node developers? Oh, sorry, please don't take any offense. Okay, so here is a camel case and a snake case. These standardization actually matter because at the end of the day, what you are really trying to, I'll just increase the font if I can. Right? Somebody writes something like this. Somebody writes something like this. At the end of the day, it is a contract how services are designed, right? And teams need to communicate. And without this whole AI, a lot of these things are identified probably in your Postman collections that, hey, this will be the contract that I would want to be there, or some design document, right? error response. Now, developer 1 is message not found. Developer 2 is that, hey, error not found. And logging. Somebody is using an fmt.Printf, log.Printf. Now, the difference here is, oh, OK. This is zooming in here. Is it better? Yeah? It's good? OK. Yeah, developer 1 is using fmt.Printf, other one is using a log.Printf, right? On two different paths. Both are giving a stud out, but the second one actually has a timestamp as well. So of course, timestamp starts mattering when you're trying to debug systems at the end of the day. But which one will you prefer, right? Which one will you prefer? The one with the timestamp, right? Now, developers are experienced most of the times. Think before this whole AI, teams used to have their own linting. There was always this conversation of tabs versus spaces, right? A team, what is actually they are adhering to, right? Now, if I go and do this, yep. So if you look at this, there is an order service and publisher. Right now, I'll just. By the way, this repository is actually a tutorial in itself. After the talk, you can go ahead and follow along. So it is divided into multiple tags and phases. So I'll just a moment. I will change here. Okay. So these are some tags that I have created so that you can follow along and how incrementally you can actually do a spur with AI and then try to come to a conclusion. There's nothing fancy about it. It is just a way of the thought process and structural building. The harness part actually comes into the later, but it is the mental model that is important that we have to build. The harness is actually, at the end of the day, is the mechanics that we are doing. Yep. Yeah. So here is a. This is good enough. I think so. Oh, right. There is nothing. Yeah, just a moment. It's a bit slow at the point. Okay. So I think this is here. Just a moment. Yeah. Cool. This basically, I think I'll go back. It's this bit laggy. My terminal is a bit laggy right now, so I'll go back here. But the idea is that on a phase 0, that it looks like something like this. Okay. You don't have any kind of a contract in between, and there is a divergence, like two developers who are trying to do. One interesting question can be these days that do you really need two developers to work on one service, right? Your agents can do it. But at the end of the day, look, a lot of the code that we have on production is legacy code before AI was there. New services, sure, you can use AI agents and have like limited number of engineers, but at least it still requires human in the loop. Humans need to still interact with each other. Okay. So now, if you see, right, the what and what not define your stack framework. What are your non-negotiables? What will be your project structure? What will be the code patterns? What will be your naming conventions? Right now, the part of this repository itself is this based instructions. Okay. If you look here, these are your some are in the cloud.md that you have, where you talk about the stack, your library, message broker, It's a very minuscule example. So it is the context is like this. Projects are at large scale at the end of the day. So so you talk about, hey, this is the project structure. For the sake of the example, the orders and fulfillment are in the same repository itself, right? What are some of the non-negotiables that you can have? That, hey, all the JSON tags must be snake case, full words, no abbreviations, right? You also say that, hey, never do this. By the way, a lot of good engineering teams have these structures. I think for Golang, Uber, the one that I have used personally is the Uber's way of doing idiomatic Go and the rules that they have. And this is pre-AI. But at the end of the day, these are some contracts. Hey, what's an idiomatic way of writing things in that particular language? And what are some of the non-negotiables that we would like to have, right? How do you want to have a error handling? That, hey, I would like to have an fmt.errorf and errors.new. Because errors.new, so fmt.errorf can actually continue the error trace as a tree, but errors.new is actually a new node which starts. So if you have a stack of errors, you would like to capture it all along the journey rather than starting something that is from new, right? Because these things start mattering when you are trying to debug your systems at the end of the day. Error response shape. What is the standard way of doing it? Most of the time, a lot of this can be baked in some SDKs, right? That, hey, we will be calling up a central engine SDK, how we have to send up my request and response bodies, right? Logging. Use log.this everywhere, never use this fmt or operational messages, right? No panic in handlers. Panic basically is that, hey, I would like to, instead of creating a panic, I would like to actually create up and send up an error which is much more human consumable rather than some weird backend response code that is generated, right? Right? The message schemas, the message, because you are using an asynchronous system in place, hey, published by orders, consumed by fulfillment. Because there are two services, there is an order ID, there is an item, then you basically says that, hey, a message that is passed is this is the order ID, this is the item, and then which is sent to the queue and consumed by the queue, it says that, hey, the response that is sent back, because the mode of communication is not synchronous, it is asynchronous via a queuing system. So this is what it should look like. And at the end, it says that, hey, read base instructions.md before writing any Go code in the repo, right? Now, if I look at this, these are the base instructions that you set up for your services. Like, how do you actually create your handler, right? For RabbitMQ, which version would you want? Now, we are actually getting into the specifics and the details that is required, right? In memory stored guarded by this, that any time it has to be generated for taking up some kind of a log, this is what we would want, right? Naming conventions. Try to have not the abbreviations, but actually the full names, okay? Snake case, I think this was already covered, but now we are actually showing up some examples there as well, right? Yeah. So a lot of these things can actually be baked in, and then you can say that, hey, these are my non-negotiables that I do not want it. You write it explicitly there that, hey, this is not something that I would want, right? So you start a lot of these things actually generate. Now, there are prompts that can be also placed in. I'll show you one prompt at the end, but some of the gotchas that you have to be careful. While everything looks good, the problem here is that if you do not have these guardrails and a human in the loop to review, mostly senior engineers initially, where they give their thought process, what it should look like, Claude.md has to be updated. Now, people used to focus on the code, but these days, your markdown files becomes really important. Brevity wins. Why? Because if you have a very long list of your Claude.md, maybe, I don't know, 400, 500 lines, just in one single file or a markdown file, your models start behaving very weirdly, because by the middle, they are not able to process this very well. There is a research paper as well where it talks about that, hey, the shorter your prompts or your markdown files, specifically for coding, it actually helps to get a better quality. What you can instead do is you can link these small files, think like small functions which can be called. So something like small files that can be referred in your cloud.md that, hey, go and read from there. It is much more easier. And it is also maintainable at the end of the day, right? Institutional memory lives in the repo. I think the one thing that I have personally liked, and as a consultant, what I have observed at multiple engineering organizations is that a lot of these decisions used to be in your Confluence or name your any documentation tool. But now a lot of these thought process are actually part of the repository. I personally like to have everything in single repository, whatever it is required, from the code to the infrastructure deployment. Again, this is very opinionated, my personal opinion, if I can, but it depends on an organization to organization at the end. But it becomes a single source of truth. Why I'm saying this? Developers, if they just care about just writing code, they will always ignore about what it takes to run things on production. And now with whole AI coming in, a lot of these writing code has been democratized. I think the focus is mostly on the thought process, what it takes to run things on production, what are the failure modes that you can think of. So hence, I believe that a lot of these can be part of your source code repository, right? AI-generated first drafts need human review. This is, who of you follows pair programming or has done this in the past? Okay, a couple of hands. You can do a pair programming just to generate these drafts, right? Because code can be generated at the end of the day, yeah? Design before you code. Now, scope, what does this actually do? What's explicitly out of scope for now, right? Components, the data flow, the interfaces, the execution, right? You talk about, I'll show you an example here, right? The design here, right? Say this is the scope that you have defined, that hey, I want to have a GET request read a single order whenever it is generated. A state machine, because state transition happen, because the moment the order is actually sent to the fulfillment, it has to change the state to processing to fulfilled or failed. And then, of course, the wire schemas for order.placed and order.fulfilled message that we saw those JSON structures. Out of scope right now, we're writing this that, hey, this is what I would want. Tomorrow, this can change, and this retries or DLQs become part of your scope as well. But a lot of these are architecture decisions, or I think right now we are talking a lot of low-level designs. It's a mix of that, but we are calling this out very explicitly what it is not. So that you are aware that what is the kind of expected output you will have, rather than something that AI actually generates for you, right? Components, these are like mostly from a service layer. What would you like to have? Some of the functions, the data flow, some happy paths that, hey, post/orders, save order, you publish, deliver.order.place, the fulfillment service, the transition happens, and then again it is sent back to a queue, right? And then because it can actually get the order ID is generated from here, and then you can actually get the value, right? When what happens if the error path, when the orders are actually not found, what you have to define, what are your edge cases. Now, why this is important? Because if you have your low-level harness which says that, hey, I want to do a TDD or a BDD, because test also needs to be generated at the end, yeah? So, and then you say that error path RabbitMQ unavailable at startup. You say, and then you say that I would like to do up a hard fail rather than trying to have a connection timeout. Or a state which you are not able to understand not in a human readable form, right? You define your interfaces that, hey, this is what it looks like. the field, everything specific to that particular decision record. Now, if you think about this, a lot of what we used to actually build a feature, right, used to be part of the code, it is now being just baked in and to the T. And you can, of course, use AI to actually, or your coding agent to generate these documents, but you have to just keep on reviewing and spend time more in thinking that, hey, this is what it will look like, right? The state machine as well, right? Hey, this is what it should be fulfilled or failed. What are the valid transactions that we can have? Yep. What are the gochas? Explicitly gatekeep each step. Say, wait for approval at, whenever you are doing this design, because this design becomes a source of truth at the end of the day. You can definitely create a PRD out of this. You can create your Jira issues. Now you're breaking things down on whatever this design was actually prescribed by you. But you have to be very careful that, hey, this is what you really want. And that will require your thinking. So the moat for software engineers is here. A senior engineer's moat is here, that, hey, this is what we would like to want, right? And of course, what I have observed, it usually takes a lot of time in doing this back and forth with AI. Because if it is just a single prompt, then I am sure that we are doing something wrong. But if it requires a back and forth, you take opinions with the AI, then it will be much more helpful, right? Right? Write approved decision into the implementation guide right here, right? And third is write a team's rule. Imagine two developers using the same AI tool. One engineer thinking is always in the head, right? I think I described. You fix this to write a generation instruction, what will be a refactoring instruction, security checklist, review checklist. Two of them I have actually kept it here, but these things can be converted into skills, very single prompt, very specific, that what would you like to want, what would you like. So something like this is here, which says, what are your generation instructions? Right. Before writing any code, right, this is the handler pattern that you would want. One gotcha that I have observed, and I have also realized in this repository, there will be some repetition that will happen. It will be part of your cloud.md. It will be part of your specific instructions file as well. But that can be ironed out over a period of time. But you have to just review those files specifically. And the challenge that I have faced, the pace at which AI generates and human is able to process. Personally, there's a lot of cognitive load, because if it has a lot of code or a text that is generated, it is very hard to even process it. What does it even mean at the end, right? Adding a structure, like how it should be. Like next time, how would you want? You have to say that, hey, this is what the past actually looks like, but this is what the in future that you have to do. So some things what we described in the base instruction and the previous markdown files is to actually debug some issues. This is mostly like, hey, how do you generate the new set of code, right? Error construction rules. New error with no underlying cause. What to write? Wrapping up a cause from a prior call. Adding context without wrapping. Do not do this. Always use this when error exists. So a lot of these instructions are actually going to your coding agent, right? So the one more that I would like to show is here, the review checklist. Now, that you do not merge your PR with unhandled errors. Like basically, you can actually go with Claude and say that, hey, do you see any code smell or something that is not adhered what the instructions that we have put up in our markdown files, right? For example, this is not cool. You transition to this because you are not actually capturing the error, right? Or something like this where you have assigned something to a blank identifier. A lot of these things needs to be highlighted if it is actually generated. Why? Because as I said, if developers have their own coding styles, the AI actually starts looking at your previous patterns and then feedback onto it, right? And when I say feedback, it is your thought process that what is acceptable to you and what is not acceptable to you. Error wrapping, RON HTTP error response shape. Right. This is something that we have discussed. Panic in handlers, missing input validation. Flag is that advisory, and that hey, these are flags. Of course, you can actually make it mandatory that hey, if there are not tests for my handler level, there is one test for your business logic, but then if there are not at your service layer or at a handler level, I would want them. You can move it as and when you want, right? Now, when you try to actually create these skills, you should have followed some kind of a Unix philosophy that one thing should do one thing at a time. Basically, your one particular skill should have just decent enough prompt where it does and solves one problem. Skill files. Now, I think a lot of the entropy in software engineering will be maintaining these markdown files at the end of the day, right? First version could be wrong. You need to keep on reviewing them. I think that is what I've already discussed. Keep a decision log, right? Like AI memory is ephemeral, as we have discussed. By the way, who has heard this thing called GSD and BAMD? Who have you heard this thing? GSD, BAMD. Okay, yeah. So these are out of the box kind of harness frameworks that people have built. GSD, sorry for the profanity, but the word is says get shit done, right? It has a lot of baked in, what do you say, skills that are created that, hey, you can actually plan at multiple places, you can have a spur, you can have a research. These are things out of the box, but I kind of feel that they don't give you a lot of control because this is very bare minimum to have some kind of a framework. And of course, once you are introduced to such frameworks, you can actually start building up your own mental model. Hey, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Yep. Decision record, not just for project, but for also features. So you can actually have that, hey, there is a decision record for what does this whole project does. But you can actually start creating smaller decision records for what features that you want to build, right, tomorrow. The implementation guide, intention, execution report, what to build and why. Possibly you can have maybe the business impact. Most of the times in code bases, you only find the technical implementation, but why this certain decision was taken in certain time, a lot of this can be part of that code repo itself, right? And now with AI, you can actually even identify that, hey, what was that actual decision and why we did certain things certain way, right? Here is the implementation guide. So even before you actually start doing this, right, written before implementation, approved before any code is changed, what to build out of the scope, right? Then your execution report, right? So once the implementation is done, you can actually define these things. So we saw these things in the previous markdown, but once it is actually done, what actually it looks like, so that for that particular feature build, what was the test generated, what are the function signatures, all of these, right? Gotchas, document your rejected alternatives. So you can actually do up a spur. Whenever you write up an ADR, there are a lot of times that we say, hey, what were the other things that you actually considered? I'm sure, hey, what were the ways? We considered this, but this was a particular trade-off, hence we did not go ahead with it, right? Be careful about what to document per story. So the thing is that if you actually start breaking down into multiple files, there will be a lot of files that your AI has to take care, but of course it will reach some kind of a limit with your tokens and whatnot. So there is a sweet spot that you will have to identify how much looks good. And of course it requires other engineers in the team to have some opinion, right? write the execution report immediately after the implementation, which is you can have something like this. These are your implementation guides. Sorry. Yeah. So capture what you learn. Once you have actually completed some feature, you can repeated mistakes that you identified while collaborating with AI, right? No knowledge base from mistakes, right? These are some of the problems that actually happen. We tend to forget and we move forward. Fix is to create a living decision document, a working record, right? Now this can be your retro, where you do up a retro after doing a building something after AI. What did AI consistently get wrong? Right. This is like, hey, this is something that I identified. Start actually capturing into this document itself. What prompt worked really well, right? What was the missing from the briefing? What do you think that a lot of times how even people end up writing prompts? It should be reframed, and we should be actually following a prompt where you just have a placeholder and then you start filling it up in, like how you do string substitution, right? Think that way. Yeah, and assign retro ownership explicitly. This is something that how we do up a sprint retro. Now with AI, you can actually do a retro between the engineers itself, that hey, what was the whole overall feature that was there. Guardrails belonging in a PR, as I think we had this quiz about that as well. Well, what went well? Make a note of what prompt worked fine for you, right? These are some of the five things. The one thing that I have also observed that a lot of the legacy code base, and this is still an unsolved problem, I haven't found a very good answer to it. How do you onboard an existing code base to AI? This is, some of the things is that you try to have a prompt where you say that, hey, these are some of my non-negotiables that I would want, right? That, hey, I would want something like this. I think I was just creating it here. 3. Yeah, so you can have a bootstrap.md where you say that, hey, this is the prompt. I would like to actually create that base instruction. So you basically go through that complete journey in itself and then try to capture as much as you can. A lot of the decisions that are already taken, that is fine, but probably you can have some kind of a watermarking that going forward we would like to keep a track of for an existing code base and have a record of them. Cool. That's it. I think that's about it, because you can actually go and talk about this to the specifics and mechanics of it, but these are some of the mental model, mostly around the collaborating in a team. Thank you. Any questions? Yep.
We talked about a lot of empty files. So, like from the SDLC model, like where do we put it? All that is in log.empty, or?
No, you basically break this down into these context files. And then you tell Claude that, hey, a lot of these things, and specify what does each file do at the end.
And like how would they be different than skills.md?
How? So skills is something that, so skills is, example, a regular expression parser. I would want somebody to use this whole, you're great at doing up a regular expression parsing from a non-structured text, like a string file, right? That is a particular skill, but this is mostly around the mental model of how would you like to collaborate on that particular code base. What is this code base is supposed to do? What are the features that you have ended up building?
So I have a question. So I'm just curious to know that these empty files, have you written everything by yourself, or you
No,
let
no, it is
write the
it
first
is
draft and then you
Yeah, I have used load and I have gave this guy credit. So
And
it's
then
there.
you review it and
Yeah.
update.
Yeah. It is there, of course.
So Jaideep, like I think you touched upon that point already. Greenfield versus the brownfield, right?
Yeah.
So what's your experience like? I mean, greenfield is fine, like you got setting the foundation and things, rosy, right? But I think the challenges come when it touching upon the legacy
Yeah.
piece of it, right?
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Any tips and tricks and you think that's something important for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have seen it at very little places, to be honest with you. Greenfield is much more easier. I think with this whole brownfield, this is what I think that you can possibly start identifying these things. Hey, within an existing code base, now it is you are explicitly writing down this in the markdown file, where what are your non-negotiable. But something you start reducing the entropy of your existing code bases by writing a lot of specifications, non-negotiable, the patterns, what good looks like, what bad looks like, right? Earlier, the whole idea of the osmosis, where a senior engineer or a young engineer used to pair, and then they used to show this is what good looks like, and this is what bad looks like. Or great engineers who write their own blogs will mention it, right? All the Martin followers of the world that you see, or they have everything baked in from decades. So people who read it. But now these things are forced to write in some markdown files. So that is a way one can actually start doing this. And of course, it has to be experimental. You have to identify, because doing something with an existing code base which is running on production, the cost is very high, right? So, and you cannot say just my coding agent did this. At the end of the day, the blame will be on the developer.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
So, on a very large code base, okay, coding agent or maybe the cloud, let's say for example, will get the context within the MD files we have defined here, right? So, what about does it take every time, or maybe after some time it will loses its context? Then it will again go to this what is it? Base context, right? So what about the token burning?
So if I understand, you're talking about the memory preservation or the token burning?
Token burning, because it will every time it will take the context from read the MD file, right? Not every time, but at some point where it may its memory
Yeah. I think so what happens is that there is a lot of meta markdown files that are created. For example, if you look at this GSD or BAMD, right, they preserve that, hey, what are these decision records that you have? So if you're trying to build, there are, let's say, 5 features. Every feature, you can actually break it down into its research, into its planning, into its implementation. And then, of course, you can, you have to, at the end of the day, you have to persist what you want to do, and then continue from where you would like to resume the next day, or an handover. If 2 developers are working, hey, before you even commit, one thing is non-negotiable, that you will have to pause your work. The moment you do a pause work, it is part of GSD, these frameworks, where it actually writes down that this is what the last thing I did, and you have to continue from here, right?
There's one more thing actually what we can do to reduce the token burning. So we have code graphing tools where like we can just index our code so that like every time when, and like we have MCP servers for that as well. So whenever like AI wants something, it will just go and find out that node information exactly, so that it doesn't have to go through complete MD files or like complete code base. So that is again one way where we can like optimize this complete process.
Yeah, one.
How do I approach writing something like this, taking the non-negotiable for something that I'm just starting up? So I work in a startup. We don't have someone who is extremely skilled or have enough experience that they can help us write this thing. Let's say I want to start it on a project. Should I define the non-negotiables if I don't have any idea what the project is going to be?
Don't use AI. No, I understand. I think, well, AI, so it is, who is the primary driver? Are you the primary driver, or an agent is the primary driver? So things actually change there. If the agent is the primary driver, whatever that guy is doing with you, that person takes the seniority, and you have to follow. Now, one thing is either you take that the agent's word, or you do your own research that what does it even look like. So a lot of the classical books, domain-driven design, solid principles, like the classical software engineering for enterprise grade people have followed, you have to go and read them so that you are able to validate, does this make sense or not, right? So while agent has its own learning curve with the code that it is being generated, software engineers have their own learning curve by reading these books. And the classical, I don't want to call them the Goliaths, but the Bibles, but you have to, at the end of the day, understand them. Yeah. Cool. Okay, I think any other question we can take it afterwards. Yeah, thank you.